What's up, everyone? Zack Miller here for another amazing edition, of course, of your favorite show and mine. But it's a special edition because we got the man. You know, when they say the myth, the legend, that means that actually has to be an amazing person. And of course it is. We are here with Chris Jones. Not to be mistaken for Casey Jones of the Ninja Turtles. Was he your favorite Ninja Turtle character?
Casey Jones?
Yeah.
No, I was always a Donatello guy, man.
Donatello. Casey Jones is so underrated, though, don't you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I always liked the reporter girl, because I was like 7 when that stuff came out. Just kidding. So, Chris Jones and I have known each other since my birthday of 2015, I believe.
Was it that long?
Because it was on the radio show, right?
That's right, yeah. It was on the radio show.
So I met Chris. Yep. I was on, what's the name of that show?
Well, you're on Convocation Radio.
Convocation Radio, yep. You and Deshaun, right? And I was on, dropping knowledge bombs and dabbing like it was 1994. And if many of you guys know, most of the people that I meet, I end up creating a relationship with and stay in touch with and try and talk with them as much and as often as possible. That's something called the hashtag Just Say Hey movement, really. And so since then, I've been on Chris's show twice. He's been on this now twice. And was also the official editor of this bad boy. Ooh. He didn't make the cover, but he helped a lot in the inside. So, Chris Jones is here with us today. Chris, thank you. How are you, sir?
Thank you. I'm doing well. I'm thankful for you, Zach.
We were just talking about my thoughts on thankfulness, so I don't know if that was a little bit of sarcasm or if you really are thankful for me, but I appreciate you, man. So, Chris and I were chatting last night. We try and get on the Facebook DMs at least once a month and just chit-chat back and forth. He has been working on Mended Faith with Connie Jude, and they've been on full-on book tour for the last, 3 months or so. Things are really starting to pipe it up. They're doing book signings everywhere. Virginia, North Carolina, D.C. area is what I've seen, and they're pumping that out. And so they co-authored that together. You've heard Connie's story before, very touching, one of the hardest interviews of my life. And we were talking about, let's go live today, so that's what we're doing. And we're going to talk about how to be an anomaly during the holidays. And so it's that 6 weeks or so, a week or two before Thanksgiving to probably a week or so after the New Year's. And we're going to give you 6-ish things to be thinking about. And I'll start with this before you hear one of Chris's. And then we're gonna banter, we're gonna go back and forth. You guys are gonna love it because what we do is things that are amazing and you guys love things like that. But what you're gonna hear is our thoughts on this. And I'm gonna start with this. Is if you start on, let's say, the second or third Thursday of November and expect to win by starting on that date, you've done it all wrong. You need to be constantly building up your reputation, your relationships, your clout, your credibility, so that when you get to that holiday, you get to that big day, you're ready. And so people are like, oh, I know this person, I trust him, he's a good person, she's a good person, I want to buy from this person now. And so it doesn't matter that there's a holiday season or not, we need to be constantly doing those things. And so starting with that, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that whole holiday lull kind of catches us because it's like, oh, yes, the Yuletide season. It's after Thanksgiving. Let's just coast into the new year, and we'll start with the new year, new you, and get things rolling out in January. And that's almost a disaster if you're a business owner. If you're someone trying to go forward in a major way, January is too late. You're a month too late by the time you start on January 1st.
Another thing about that? It's kind of like resolutions, right? People start about resolutions, right? I'm not a fan of resolutions. And here's primarily why, right? I have literally worked out every day this year except for the first day of the year. That was not a New Year's resolution. I just happened to do it, right? I started working out like I have many a times, but this time I stuck with it. Basically because my buddy Tim has run something like 2,000 straight days, at least 2 miles a day. And I was like, well, if he doesn't take days off, why do I need to take days off? So I was kind of like curating this competition between my best friend and I, and it was really interesting. But why I don't think resolutions and why I think certain goals can be really hard to obtain is because what happens constantly is different things are changing in there. So on January 1st of this year, 2018, I was not planning on writing a book. I mean, think about that, right?
Yeah.
I signed the contract with Morgan James somewhere around February 1 and started writing the book somewhere around February 1. Had I created an entire resolution for this 2018 year around something that ended up not existing, I mean, that's crazy to think. That's why I think you got to constantly be evaluating these things at least once a month, at least once a quarter. I would say more than once, more likely, more like, can't speak, at once a month because things change, right?
They do.
And so I, decided I was going to, start training for a half an Ironman. These things change these things happen because you start building up these new habits of other things. And so I think all these goals can be a really hard thing to do. Resolutions can be really hard things to do because you're looking at a full year instead of looking at a moment in time. And instead, it's like, just do this one thing once. Because if you think about it, I think my book is, 53,000 words or so? I don't know. You've read it just as much as I have. So you hear 53,000 words, you go, whoa, that's a lot. But if you think about it, I'm going to write 1,000 words for 53 days. It doesn't seem as bad. So kind of getting into those micro pieces, I think is so important.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree 100%. And then also when you talk about just having a book for a goal or something to that degree, what happens when you hit it February 1st? Your entire year is done. So you basically want to, if you're going to use a book, how do you take the book and incorporate it into your existing brand, or how do you build a brand around a book? That's a much bigger goal for a book, as opposed to just, I'm going to write a book in 2019 and that's going to be the end of it. Because if you're done by February 1st and you self-publish it by February 28th, what are you going to do with the rest of your year?
Have you read the book, The Power of Habits by Charles something?
Yes, I have. I read that this year.
Okay. So I thought it's interesting that I'm going to give the review that I'm going to do, and then I've talked about it many times. I thought it was a very boring and bland book. However, the science behind it was very powerful and was interesting. It was hard for me to get into it until he started talking about Tony Dungy's football team. But very, very interesting book. And so Charles Duhigg, I think is his name. What's interesting about it is how he says, start doing these really small micro habits that might have nothing to do with something over here, and that changes everything. And so, I probably didn't read a book the last 5 years. I might have read parts of books, but not a full book. I probably read 50 books this year now, right? Not read, I've listened to them, but I did that. And so it's really interesting how you start these other habits, and all these other new habits come into your life because of it. It's very, very interesting. But that's why I think starting those little small things is really interesting. A lot of people talk about meditation and stuff like that. It's just if you can do these little things, it will build up calluses in your body and your mind, and all these bigger things start to happen. Because when people are like, oh my God, I see all these things that you're doing, you're like, I'm just doing a bunch of little things. But those little things are building up.
They move the needle.
And they build a hill. That hill becomes a mountain. That mountain becomes whatever, my crazy hair, etc. You get it. Okay, so
the whole concept of discipline begetting discipline.
Exactly.
Just getting little bits of discipline just builds up over time.
But it's so important because so many people don't do it. So, all right, so we're talking about how to be an anomaly, which is spelled Anomaly, by the way, if you're wondering. In the holiday season, you heard my first take, which is don't start in the holiday season. Be building up that clout, that credibility, that reputation beforehand. Chris, you got something called the Immersion Learn. What do you think about that?
So basically, the holiday season is a great time to just absorb information. That's one of my favorite things to do during this time of year between Thanksgiving and New Year's. I love to just immerse myself, whether I'm watching lots of YouTube videos related to something I want to learn, whether I'm going to Skillshare or Udemy to learn a new skill. By the way, both of those guys are having Cyber Monday sales. So with Skillshare, you can actually hop onto Skillshare and get a 3-month subscription for $1 right now. Or you can go to Udemy and get their courses for $10 a pop. Some of those courses are typically $200, and I do that this time of year. I do that all the time. I just go and buy a bunch of courses that I want to learn. A couple of years ago, it was podcasting. So what I did is I went to Udemy and bought 4 or 5 podcasting courses and just started going through how to podcast, edit, ways to interview, all these different things. But it's a great time of year because it is more of a laid back time of year. And if you don't want to go full throttle driving, or you've got a particular business that doesn't cater to that model, then use that time to build a skill that you either want or you want to increase. And that's what I like to do during this time of year, is just focus on, pick one new skill that I want to add to my repertoire going into 2019 that'll help me advance my goals, and just dive into it for the next 6 weeks, like you said.
Interesting. I feel like I'm learning so much all the time.
Yeah.
And, it's so interesting because to piggyback on that, I look at my life like when I was growing up. How old are you? We're about
42.
How old?
42.
Damn, you old. I didn't realize you're so old. Okay. I'm
Dude,
34.
man, if life is a football field and I'm going to live to be 100, I'm on my own 42-yard line. I'm still on my side of the field,
but,
man.
I mean, you definitely learned how to use. Did you learn how to do math on an abacus? I mean, damn. I'd like to tell the story how I learned how to type on a typewriter. Now I don't even. I mean, dude, you were like the originals. No, I'm kidding. Anyway. So I think about content in these kind of crazy ways, and I was just saying that I'm trained to do a half an Ironman, which is basically the full Ironman, but half of it, right?
Yeah.
Because who wants to do a full when you can only do a half? But what's interesting is when I finally signed up for it, I then searched on the YouTube, because I consume a lot of YouTube content because that's how I learn best, because I like video, because it's easier for me to consume. How do you run an Ironman 70.3 is what I looked at. And what's interesting is that gave me a broad view of certain things to be thinking about. A lot of the videos I'm watching are 5 to 10 years old. What's interesting about that to me is the video is 5 to 10 years old. So meaning that evergreen content has still basically stayed perpetually relevant for a decade, right?
Yeah.
And that's in something that's still fairly young as Ironman's. Think about where some of this content is going to be. Like, how do you create a podcast, right? There's a chapter of it in my book. It's basically turn on your phone, press record, and go. And so many people want to, overcomplicate the scenario.
Yes.
And so it's so interesting to me that, this content and some of the stuff that you're probably talking about, Skillshare, Udemy, wherever it is, these courses are probably 3, 7, 10 years old as well. And so the stuff stays relevant. So when you're learning something like this, what grasps you, what pulls you, what are you looking for in that kind of stuff?
So I'm looking to enhance a skill. So what I do, something I like to do just for fun, is every so often I'll hop on the LinkedIn jobs. And I'll just see, hey, what's relevant if I were in the workplace, if I was going into the workplace, what are the relevant skills someone with my position would have? And so every so often I'll pop on there and I'll just study some of those things. I'm like, oh wow, so I need to learn how to use this style guide, or I need to learn how to use this particular type of content system. So then I'll just try to learn it just for fun sometimes and incorporate it into whatever it is I'm doing. So that's one thing that I do. The second thing that I do...
Do you do that also to make sure that if you ever need to get a job, you would stay relevant in it? That you could find a job?
Well, it's always good fallback to be able to say, hey, yeah, I'm just as relevant even though I've been gone. Because that's always the one thing whenever you're out of a job for a while. It's like, well, how relevant are your skills? Well, I keep my skills up to date all the time.
Interesting.
I stay in the industry. But just like I said, just a couple months ago, I bought this. I bought a kind of a magazine editing course from a New York Times editor. And just went through how does he edit, and then just kind of followed along and did the course. And so I just look for things that are complementary to the skills that I already got, and then just add them on in, or I look for something new. Like I said, look for something new that I want to learn, and I hop in and learn something new.
I believe, I'm looking at the books behind me, I believe this is up there. But there's a book by Ramit Sethi. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he... I think he's a New York Times bestseller as well, but he wrote a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
Yeah.
And I'm not super big into finance books and things like that. Obviously, I know Dave Ramsey and people like that. I respect these guys and what they do, but I'm not super big into those things. But when someone recommends a book 3 or 4 times, you're like, all right, maybe I should listen to this.
Yeah.
So this guy writes his book, and there's a line in it that basically says that when you're reading a book, you're spending $15-$20. If you can get one nugget out of it for $15, it was worth it. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Imagine if you can give someone like 100 nuggets for $15 or something like that. And so it's so interesting that like his thought is, for a 4-hour read, if you can get one little nugget and you can transform your life on it, it's worth it. And to me, that line was like, oh wow, that's interesting, because there's so many books that it's hard to find a takeaway from. Right? It's not a bad book, but you're like, I don't know what to do next. And so I know, like, when I was writing mine, that was something that we talked about. It's like, have some sort of exercises or roadmaps afterwards, so like you had something tangible to do afterwards. So.
Right.
All right. What's number 2 for you during this?
So number two for me this time of year is just scout the landscape. Scout the landscape. See what's happening next year. So what I like to do is this time of year is, okay, what conferences are actively looking for speakers this time, for next year right now? What book festivals are coming up, next year? Can I apply to those? Where can I get my foot in the door to start booking my calendar for 2019 right now? Even magazines, even getting magazine editorial guidelines, they're all done now for 2019. So being able to get in and start to query magazine editors about possible stories to write. So
what are you searching for to find those places?
The editors?
Yeah, conferences, book signings.
Well, for the editors, I go straight to the magazines I want to write for. So typically, you go to the website you want to write for, go to the About section, or they've got some sort of editorial guidelines section or writers guidelines section, and just pull those down. Look at those, see how they want their content written, how they want their stories written, and then how they want them pitched, and figure out who you pitch it to. So I always try to stay away from the catch-all inboxes. I tell everyone, hey, don't go to the catch-all inboxes. So it's like editor
info
at such and such, info at, yeah. See if you can, and Twitter's good for that. Hop on Twitter, figure out who the name of the editor is, and then look for how the URLs are constructed in the emails, and just put it all together. So it's Zack, if it's like info at scottwithhatch.com, I'll say, okay, well, how's the rest of the guys at Hatch, how do they have their email addresses built? And it's like, oh, Zack at Hatch. Okay, they're using first names only.
I don't always notice things like that, because sometimes it just comes to the inbox anyway. But like when I see something like, I think ours is team, TEAM at our URL. But when I see that, I'm like, I appreciate that you went through and wrote the email, because on the website it says to do that. But go a little bit further, people. Come on. Like, it's not hard. Like, it's on LinkedIn. I think it's on. Yeah. It's in a lot of places. So, like, and you probably had this a bunch, and maybe he's listening, but I had a publicist reach out recently to try and help with Anomaly. And what's interesting about that is I kind of think Anomaly is really a how to be your own publicist in a way as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
I can agree to that.
What's interesting is I'm like, I wonder if this guy is going to follow up. I wonder. So he called. He was from Boston, by the way. Just throwing that out there, So if I don't remember what his name is, but I wonder if he follows up or if he gives up, right? And so I told myself at first I was going to respond to him, and I was like, you know what? Let's see how hard he works to get me. Not that I'm going to hire him, because I don't know, but I was like, if he calls a second time. If he emails a second time, I'll give him a time of day. But if he's not willing to do that on me, the person he wants as a client, what makes me think that he's going to do that for the people who I want to be on their show for?
Right.
Have you done any of that publicist
stuff?
That's very
good. That's very good.
See, there's your one little tangent. See,
now there's my nugget for you.
But think about.
But that's true. As an editor, I deal with that when people send me stuff. Some people will send me one pitch and be done. Some people will continuously send me pitches. Hey, so that pitch didn't get through. What do you think about this story? Or they'll say, hey, I sent my pitch to you. I noticed, I heard back from you in a couple of weeks. Did you like the story? Is there something I can tweak for the story? So I tend to like that better, and I tend to like people who actually go the extra mile and give me the full-on pitch, not just, hey, dear editor, I wrote a story about such and such. Okay, but is it relevant to my audience?
I had someone on
That's
LinkedIn.
Where it always falls short. Is it relevant to will my audience care about your pitch, or did you specifically go on the website, see where there's some holes in my content, and then pitch those holes?
I had someone on LinkedIn last night, and I feel a little bad for doing this. I don't feel bad at all. But they said, "Hey, sir," which was
Sir.
interesting. I was like, "Oh boy,
Yeah.
here we go.
Strike one.
Let's mess with this." I can help you get more views for your podcast. Okay, cool, whatever. And so I just respond, "Hello," and a day or two goes by. "Hello, sir. Were you interested in this happening?" I'm like, "Okay, this might be a bot. I don't know, whatever." But then I was like, "Oh, so what do you? What's your favorite episode of mine?" A simple question.
Hello, sir.
The response
them
was
all.
like, "Sir, I can help you with that." I'm like,
I know.
okay. Like, now, I don't know if it's just that there was bad English. I don't know if the person's lazy. I don't know what it is. But, like, I tell people, think about the scenarios where you hate someone putting you through. Right? So
Yeah.
I've been opening my Anomaly talk with something along the lines of, my wife and I just bought a house, and I was in my backyard putting together a fence, and someone knocked on the door. I didn't answer it, and I didn't think anything of it. 2 or 3 minutes later, that same person rings the doorbell, and I'm like, okay, it's probably a neighbor introducing themselves, giving me brownies, whatever. We're new, it's going to be great, whatever. It's some guy trying to sell me a security system. And I'm like, I have a security system. There's a little stake in the ground that says the company. And by the way, I can see this guy on the app that I'm using. And it's just like, and then he kept pushing. He's like, "You sure you want to do this?" I'm like, "Dude, I appreciate your hustle, but I'm not going to hire you. Like, I'm already with this company." And so it's like, I genuinely appreciate the guys busting his tail door to door. Like, that's not easy stuff. But why would I then, knowing that I personally didn't like that scenario, I can see it in your face and the many people that I've told this story for, we then basically copycat these scenarios and put our new customers through them. Yeah. That doesn't make sense, right? In the book, I say McDonald's and Chick-fil-A sell the same thing. One of them you love to go to, one of them you can't stand going to, right? A value meal is a value meal. And people be like, "But Zach, they taste," whatever. You get my point. Food is food, right? Right. And so why put your potential customers, through terrible scenarios, knowing that you don't want to do that yourself? It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. My friend of mine, my monitor used to say, you have to be specific to be terrific. I always remember that. And the thing is that, and so when you're dealing with sending emails out to meeting planners or trying to book, book signings or whatever you're trying to book next year, one, get the person's name. That goes a long way. It becomes very personal. I'm going to look at something with my name on it. 2, make sure that you just notice a small detail. It can be anything like, "Hey, if you figure out that I'm in Virginia, oh wow, yeah, heard it's pretty cold out there where you are now, or hey, gearing up for Grand Illumination now, huh?" I'm like, "Wow, he knows about Grand Illumination. That's pretty cool." So you catch me there too. Catch me at point B, then dive in. "Hey, I got this really cool. I really want to go and sign books at your place. I think it'd be great. I've looked online, saw the layout. I think that little nook over in the corner is perfect. If we can do that, let me know if we can hook up and talk about that." Bow. Yeah. And just dive into specifics.
It's really
dive into specifics, because that creates a very memorable impression. Because then I'm like, "Well,
you said
really
something.
Paid attention."
You said something there that most people aren't willing to do. Right? It's figuring out a commonality. It's figuring out something that's similar, something that will be valuable to them. And so, to me, it's so important to just find something that's important to them and then provide them some sort of data point on that. Or, like, it could be their hat, right? Or, "Oh, hey, like, yeah. I like that sweater that you're wearing. What brand is that?" People are like, "Oh, that's interesting." Or, like, for me, it's like, "What are you watching on or what are you watching on Netflix?" Right?
Right.
And so if you can find, and people are like, "That's stupid, Zach." I'm like, would you rather be like, "What do you do for a living?"
No,
right? And so I say that because if you can find that personal thing, and usually people are writing about this content on their social feeds, so all you have to do is be like, "Oh, I saw that you like Stranger Things. I do too. Did you think when 11 came back in season 2 that was absolutely ridiculous?" Oh my God, you've created a real relationship with someone.
Boom.
And people are like, "Well, why would you do that?" Because people are changing their jobs every 3 years. And what happens if you find them in month 35 and you were trying to sell to them for that one career instead of the one 10 years from now, right? friends are friends, hopefully forever, right? The Saved by the Bell, Friends Forever song. That was so powerful. Right? But I just think people are too short-sighted and they don't think, oh, what can I be doing for the long term? Knowing that data is against them anyway. That's why relationships are so freaking important.
No, it is, and it's an exercise in just being it's an exercise in being patient. Just be patient. It's kind of like you watch football, right? You're a football guy. So the one thing I was talking about
behind me, man.
That's what I'm talking about. I can't. It's the glass. There's a glare on the glass.
I know.
Football or baseball.
I gotta fix that.
But the one thing they always talk about with Le'Veon Bell was that he's a very patient runner. He'll stutter step, get to the hole, and
is that blast the guy who used to be a Steeler?
It is the guy that used to be a Steeler. Doggone it. But it's that same concept of being patient, finding the hole, and then bam, there it is.
Well, that's why I always thought the stat of career best, not game best or season best, is so powerful, because for you to be basically the GOAT, right?
Yeah.
That's hard, right?
Yeah.
Especially with football, running backs, and people are like, well, I'm not into sports. That's okay. Like, who's the greatest author of all time? There's plenty of people out there that had to do this thing over and over and over again, and one-hit wonders are great, and sometimes they make a lot of money, right? But to be the best musician of all time, to be the best author of all time, to be the best quarterback of all time, to be the best supermodel of all time, to be the best game maker of all time, that is something that is really freaking hard. And that consistency is underrated, in my opinion. And so that's what I'm trying to be the GOAT. I don't know what I'm trying to be the GOAT in, right? But I want people to be like, damn, that guy consistently, like, was amazing for, like, a long time. And I'm realizing I think my best skill set is, like, relationship building and not trying to, like, go after people immediately. I mean, our example is a great thing. Like, you and I have actually physically done business together, right? We didn't need each other to do anything other than you interview me. And I was like, oh, I like this kid. Let's keep talking, right? And then eventually I was like, oh, well, I know what he does. I should call him. And that's how it works, people. So now Chris and I, 3 or 4 years later, we've done real transactions together. We're friends. We have a relationship. We go to bat for each other. Like, that's what you're trying to create. And yes, it's freaking possible, but you're trying to look at Another thing is, I think people are too in the moment of what they see and not understanding that could be a little misleading. Right?
No, it's true. It's like sports. You have to build for the future. So a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of people that I work with this year were people that I first networked with in 2012, 2013. It's just we just held on to the relationship, and then when they had a need, like, oh yeah, that guy, he writes and edits. I'm writing and editing right now because writing's having a book's an important thing for me. And so I've been working with clients this year, like I said, that I met networking 5 years ago. So it's just about I think we get in this whole getting this whole transactional mentality where everything has to end in a transaction, and it doesn't. Sometimes the only transaction that has to end in is just, okay, I know what you do, you know what I do. Let's just stay in touch. Like you and I, we stay in touch, we chit chat, we shoot the breeze, and then whenever we need something, hey, do you know a guy? Do you know a guy? And we kind of point each other in the right direction or send each other resources that we need. So you keep that relationship going. But yeah, everything doesn't have to be transactional right away. Just build for the future, man. Okay, well, I may not need a realtor today, but I'll need one in a few years from now.
Oh, God. Okay, so that's what I can't stand, right? When I go to these meetings, and there's so many realtors there, right? I think real estate realtors are the new MLM, right? Like, here's my thing. All of them sound the same. Hey, I'm buying and selling real estate. Duh. That's your job, right? Like, we know that, right? Like, I went to a networking event, and 4 of them literally said the same thing. Oh, if you know anyone that's looking to sell their house, or if you know anyone that's looking to buy a house, maybe you could connect me with them, because that's what I do for a living. Yeah, we get it. That's what real estate is, people. Like, you could say, I'm a realtor, and then go into a different story completely, right? Like, it boggles my mind how lazy people are. And how, like, people don't stand out. So I use this picture in my talk where there's a group of people at a chamber of commerce, and how everyone is wearing the exact same outfit. And people are like, well, that's what you have to do. And then I show a picture of Jared Leto at basically an event where he's wearing this high flying thing. Or you'd be like me, and you're wearing like the black T-shirt, which I say that I'm not wearing a black T-shirt today. A black T-shirt and jeans. Like, there's so many ways to be like just a little different, and it doesn't have to be from an external standpoint. It could be like the care that you give to someone, like actually having a real conversation with people. Because how many networking events have you gone to where people are like, you know the person's trying to get your business card and you can't wait to have them go away.
Yeah,
right.
A lot.
Like, hopefully people don't do that with me. I think people like, I don't like to talk about business. When people are like, what do you do for a living? I stole this from my buddy Chad Stencil. I say as little as possible. I don't want to talk about me. I don't want to talk about anything about me. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I want to talk about something that can deeply create a relationship with people. And that's what, like, on my first talk with someone, that's all I care about doing. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about business.
I think that's a lot of networking. Go to listen. Just listen, pick up, and then as soon as you get in the car, go follow up. Hey, it was great to talk to you.
I think that's how I got the publisher.
Yeah, great to meet you.
I just sat back and listened.
Yeah, have you ever read the book How to Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten?
No.
Harvey McKay?
No.
Oh, dude. Harvey McKay's strategy for customer service. He ran a company called McKay Envelopes in Minnesota, but he wrote a book about it. So he talks about, basically he's got this thing called the McKay 66, and it's 66 things about his clients. So he always knows something about his clients. So he knows where they went to school, what their favorite film is, who their favorite actors are, what alma mater they came from, who their favorite sports teams are. So what he would do is have his people, whenever, like yesterday, Ohio State won, and one of his big clients, or one of his big prospects was a big Ohio State fan. He would email them the ESPN article. Hey man, Ohio State crushed it, man. I know you're over the moon. Talk to you soon. Little things, man. Just those little observations, man, go a long way in networking. A long way.
And how hard was that?
So easy, because I'm reading ESPN anyway. so it's very easy. But yeah, it's just.
I think it's hard because people aren't willing to do that. Yeah. They don't think to do it. Like, I should figure out, you find something that person loves. Like, the Ohio State thing is great, right? So you could do that. Like, I know there's a client that I used to have, and we left on good terms. It's not like people no, like sometimes things end. Like the contract ended, right? Yeah. Basically, it was for a sponsorship for an event, and we don't do that in an event anymore, right? And so when I was sending the invoice. Every time I would then go and figure out what the sports score was of the team that this person liked and said, oh, by the way, it looks like y'all are doing good. Or, oh, maybe you guys need to do something in free agency. Little things like that where I'm like, hey, by the way, you're giving me thousands of dollars. I appreciate that. But also I'm going to go look at this and be like, oh, look what the Yankees are doing right now, or whoever it was, right? The Detroit Lions, whatever. Like, it's so easy to figure out something that people love. Mm-hmm. It could be like, oh, I saw that your daughter just graduated. That's cool. Where is she going to school next year? Oh, she's going to JMU. So then you have your next thing. Oh, she's going to JMU? Well, JMU won the national title in football a few years ago. Is your daughter going to the game? JMU, maybe they're a journalist. JMU has a good journalism school. Maybe you could talk about that. You saw, there's so many ways to quickly roll off the tongue, find scenarios on ways to connect with people. What was your third thing?
So my third thing was just give. Just go, like we kind of segued in that. Just go to give. Go to listen to people. Go to give. Go to have fun. But yeah, just give value. So when you meet people at holiday parties or networking, because there's going to be a lot of those coming up in the next couple of weeks. A lot of holiday parties, a lot of networking. Just go to give. When you have conversations with people, say, hey, how'd your 2018 go? Hey, what are you doing in business in 2019? I know you hate talking about business, but hey. What are you doing in 2019? Oh, who can I connect you with that can get you off to a great get you off to a great start in January? Maybe I know somebody that can help you. Whatever the case may be, just find ways to give to people. Find ways to add value to people and ask for nothing in return.
We talked about a little off screen beforehand about this, talking about being an anomaly in the holiday season, but around that kind of giving mindset, there are times when let's talk about people who have a service or a product, a book, whatever, an app, and there's a fee for that, and then they decide that they're going to start giving these things away, the actual product away. I've seen people, and I personally believe this is the wrong strategy. And I get you. So you're saying give as in like provide value to people for a long period of time, so that when you do want to sell them something, they're like, okay, number one, this person has created so much value to me already. They're credible because I've done my own due diligence to figure it out. They followed up with me a lot. They've become a friend. And then like 19 other things that are just continuing to check off boxes, basically, right? Like, okay, this person, like, I'm going to win with this. Then there's this other thing where people will use like a giveaway strategy to give their product to someone to just do it, to be nice, whatever. And I get why they're doing that, but I think you should have some sort of discipline behind that to try and get that in front of someone who can increase your clout, that has some sort of social influence, that if you were to then promote that, it's not only going to drive traffic to you, but also drive sales and opportunity to you. Yet I think we've seen that you're in author world. I'm now in author world. I'm seeing a lot of people just throwing out stuff with no kind of like discipline. Is like, what am I even doing this for? I'm just doing it to do it. And so like, what do you think about driving for a purpose, if you will?
No, I agree, because I think for the most part, people do the giveaways to try to obtain bestseller status, which really it's a vanity metric. Who cares? Okay, yeah, it sounds nice, but then at the end of the day, I can't take that to the bank. So, what you want to be able to do is like you said, have some sort of strategy behind it. But I like the idea, if you're going to give books away, you can give some to people close to you, whatever, clients, such and so forth. I mean, it's always a great gesture. But on top of that, like, find people with clout, find influencers, somebody who can drive your book to the next level, somebody that can take your book and present it to somebody who else, or someone who may have some status. But like you said, you want someone who's got some social clout, because that person's going to post it. Or you can ask them, say, hey, look, if I give you a free copy of my book, man, we just take a picture and just post yourself on Instagram with my book. I mean, it's an easy thing. It's an easy ask. Just say, hey, just post it on there, whatever. But yeah, give it to people who've got some level of recognition, whether it's locally, whether you know someone who's got some big local recognition or someone who's got some mainstream recognition. But yeah, give your best to those.
But and hopefully be building those relationships with those people for years, decades, etc. There's plenty of people that I've never made a cent off of, from them, but I know that I've made tens of thousands of dollars indirectly from them.
Yeah. Yeah. Give it to book bloggers. Give it to people who can actually advance your book, like you said. Give it to people who can advance your book. Give it to journalists. People
do both, I guess, right? Like so, like it's not always both. Like a this or that.
Not all over. Yeah, exactly.
It's just make sure that the people, like if this person, for example, has a following of 2, and you're trying to sell 2,000 books, you have to find someone that probably has a following of 200,000 to be able to try and hopefully get some sales out of that, right?
Yeah.
And so there's only such a percentage of people that will buy from some sort of influencer. But it's tough. So it's now November 26th. It's an early Thanksgiving this year. Apparently it's late next year, even though it's always on the same day, but time of the month. Like, what does your day look like? Like, what does your week look like, I guess?
In general?
Yeah, for these 6 weeks. We're talking about holiday and Anomaly. So
for me, when it comes to the things I talked about, the immersion learn, right now I'm studying the distribution. I'm learning about book distribution. How does it work? How do they do it? Where does it go? So I'm trying to learn about all the various book distributors who are out there, and then figure out who can I talk to in those various places to learn more about how each one of those companies works and how they affect book sales. So that's my immersion learn right now is book distribution. As far as my workflow, I've got books on the table still for editing. I'm actually doing a second edition of my first book, The Art and Business of Writing. So I'm working on a second edition of that. I'm about 11 chapters into that one. That's got like 24. So I'm just doing a kind of a big revision because I want to write another book next year, but I don't know, something kept pulling me towards just revising this book first. So I wanted to revise this one first before I started the next book. But I've got the next book completely outlined and full synopsis, so it's ready to go.
What's the next book?
I don't have a title for it yet.
What is it about?
Huh?
What's it about?
But it's a book on it's basically a book on writer mindset. Basically, what's the mindset you need to have to be successful? It's really just focused on that, using different examples, not just writers, but just real world examples, from The Rock all the way out to the moon
Like
landing.
The Rock?
Yeah.
So you read
So
about
we're
The
looking-
Rock in my book, and then you wanted to put him in yours?
Yeah, I was so inspired. No, but no, it's just really
What? So,
But no, it's really going into the aspects of, you know, what do you need to do to have the success mindset? Because I think what I encounter when I'm dealing with authors and writers is that there's this prevalent mindset of just I'm either here or it's a hobby. I'm like, no, let's bring you to at least the middle where you can see success in different people's stories and kind of so it's very personal development-ish, but it's really aimed at writers.
when did you write that book before?
Which one? This one or the first?
The first edition.
On my first edition of the art. Well, I did that in 2015.
Okay. When was the last time you read it?
I'm reading it right now.
Okay, so before that, when was the last time?
2016, late 2016.
So I have not
Read it a year later.
So
read it a year later.
I read you've read Anomaly several times. I've obviously read it several times back and forth. I have not read it in its bound book, which is
it's not unusual. It's not unusual. I really didn't. I didn't want to read mine, but when I toyed around with the idea of doing a second edition as early as 2016, and then I stopped reading it. And then I started reading it as I've been going through re-editing. I'm like, oh my gosh, and that makes me feel.
Oh
good.
my gosh! Like, I sucked.
And not that I sucked, but man, one, I know so much more now. And I think for me that's the best part. Like, wow, I know so much more about the subject matter I'm dealing with now than I did in 2015. So you see the growth, and of course, when you see the growth, you feel the suck. You're like, wow, my book, it's still a good book, but I'm here now. Woo,
That's why the second edition.
Exactly. So you feel good about that. You're like, I'm a much better writer now. I'm a much better communicator of ideas now. I know how to move story much better now than I did then. I was like, back then it was just, hey, let me just get this.
Right.
To paper.
My sister asked me a question about a month ago.
Yeah.
And it was, did you write this book? And I was like, that's a stupid question. And then I thought to myself, well, what's some stupid answer that I can respond? And actually, I thought it was funny. I said, well, I wrote the first draft. Which is true. I mean, for those of you who don't know, obviously we're talking to Chris Jones. He was the editor of Anomaly. When he got that first draft, it was basically, you see how the color is red? He basically just printed out a bunch of red pieces of paper and just gave it to me like this. So,
I tell you what, though, man. For people listening, you talked about the book being 53,000. It's a fast 53,000.
It's interesting.
It has very, very
41
fast
chapters, right?
It's a fast read, and I think
people are enjoying the short pieces.
But I think that's just the thing, because when I think about if you're a person in business or you have a kind of an entrepreneurial mindset, when you buy Kindle books, you tend to want to you buy them very focused. I know I do. If I want to buy if I'm trying to learn about how to build Facebook ads, I buy books strictly about Facebook ads, not entire marketing books. And those books tend to be 5,000 word ebooks for like $2.99. So basically, what you got there is a collection of ebooks bound together, so it's like a reference. So I can just open to chapter 20. It doesn't matter if I read chapter 1 or 2. I'm trying to learn what you're talking about in chapter 20 by getting on a podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm reading that chapter, and that's it right now.
You probably could read. I recommend people to obviously read the whole thing, but at least part 3 and parts of part 2 are really like you could go back individually chaptered. The first part, which is probably, it's not that many pages. It's maybe 20 or 40 pages. That part, I think you need to read the whole thing because it's really business principles and basics.
Kind of foundation.
Yeah. And so some people, I think I even write, like, you might know about this before, but let me just go touch on it again. Because to me, it's like, it doesn't matter if you're going after a girl, if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to write a book, sell a business, whatever, you need to have that foundation first. And so understand how I'm thinking about the foundations, and then you can read the book and never have to do that again. So that's been powerful and important to people. I've actually gotten messages from people like, oh, I didn't think I was going to like the short chapters, but I actually really do. I have only gotten one bad review. That was from my dad. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, my dad did this. My dad did the same thing. Can you believe? That's funny you mentioned that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He didn't read the whole book.
Yeah, I don't think my dad did.
And he admitted, because I basically, there's a part in the book, and you might know this. If you do, don't mention it right now, where I basically say something that you know that if I ask you the question, like, what is the secret code?
Yeah.
What is what is it? So that when I know that you've actually read the book. And he was like, "Oh, I don't think I got to that part of the book." And I was like, "Of all people, Dad, I know that you would get to this because it's you lived it with me, so I know that it's there." So I don't know. It's an easy read. So anything else?
So who's your favorite Anomaly?
My favorite Anomaly. Well, I mean, I think Vince McMahon is the one person that I think is, from a business perspective, done something absolutely crazy. He's helped build a lot of brands. I mean, you talk about The Rock. The Rock is huge. People who care and do the little things. I mean, it doesn't have to be these big, huge superstars. Those are people that you see and have big brands around them. Those are the two that would come to mind right now. But even the small guy that sends a handwritten card. I mean, or goes and holds the door for someone at their local YMCA. I mean, those are here's a great example. I was at Walmart the other day, and there was an old lady in a wheelchair, and she had a cart full of stuff. And when she got done, I just went up to her and I said, "Hey, do you need help putting that in your car?" And she was like, "No, I'll be okay." And the cash lady, the lady at the cash register, was like, "That was really nice of you." And I was like, it was a question. Like, it wasn't hard to ask. I was happy to do it. I didn't end up doing it because she said she was fine, and I took that as it is. Some people don't want the help, and that's fine, right? But I looked at her and I said, just because everyone else in this world, and this is a generalization, just because everyone else is super negative and not willing to do it doesn't mean that I will follow suit with that. And to me, it's about creating a crap ton of little habits to be helpful to other people that make your day a lot better. So that when I see someone who's 75 and handicapped that has boxes of stuff in a cart that I don't think she can do, all I have to do is say, "Do you need help with that?" Holding the door for someone. Like those little things that people are like, "What does that mean in business?" No, it goes a long way, because if you do that, you're gonna create all these little other habits that will make you more successful in life and feel better about yourself and help someone. Again, like it's what it took me 2 seconds to ask that lady, and then the cash register lady at Walmart was amazed, and I was just like, it's not hard to be a good person. Just do the little things.
Just do little things. Nice.
That's it. That's how we're gonna wrap it up. Chris Jones, you guys can learn about him at chrisjonesinc.com. Don't spell his name wrong. It's common spelling of both, and then INK, ink, like writing, or a tattoo, ink. So Chris, CHRIS, Jones, JONES, Inc, INK.com. And that's it for today's show. Right. Check out him and the million things that he's doing. Appreciate you. I want to see you with a beard next time I see you.
Dude, I can't grow facial hair.
I do not want to see you with the beard next time then. But you guys should definitely check him out. I'll make sure to tag him in this as well in the show notes. And until next time, peace.
Later.